Imagine coming home from a trip, your feet aching, suitcase dragging behind you, and finding all your belongings dumped like garbage on the front porch. A soggy note taped to your favorite lamp reads, "Sorry, Mom, no space for you." Signed by your own son. My name is Marla DeVal. I'm 61 years old, a retired paralegal living in Greenville, South Carolina, and what I'm about to tell you, it still knots my stomach every time I think about it. I gave that boy everything. And when I say everything, I mean every piece of my savings, my time, my health. I stayed up nursing his fevers, defending him in middle school when he got suspended for something he didn't do, and working overtime to afford his college tuition so he wouldn't drown in debt like I did. I never remarried after his father passed because I was afraid any man might resent raising someone else's child. I didn't want that kind of instability in his life. But in the end, when I needed someone, just a little space, a little warmth, I wasn't just ignored. I was evicted. Let me back up. About 3 months ago, I took a 2-week trip to Florida. Nothing fancy, just a quiet getaway with an old friend, Sandra, from my church quilting group. She'd been nudging me for months, saying I needed sun and less funeral black. I hadn't realized I wore so much black until she said it. Anyway, I left my son Derek in charge of the house. Well, our house, technically. It used to be mine, bought and paid for after 22 years at a downtown law firm, but I signed the deed over to him a couple years ago when I thought I might move into something smaller, a condo maybe. That was my mistake. I didn't follow through on the move, and he said I could stay as long as I wanted. That's the last time I trusted someone with a verbal promise. When I got home from the trip, it was raining. One of those late summer southern storms that rolled in like an argument you didn't see coming. I was fumbling with my keys when I noticed something strange on the porch. My old suitcase. I recognized the scuff mark on the side where the airline busted the zipper 10 years ago. And then I saw the rest. Boxes. My blouses still on hangers. My shoes half soaked. My mother's Bible, my sewing machine. At first, I thought there'd been a fire or a leak inside, some emergency. But then I saw the note, a folded piece of printer paper taped right to my desk chair. "Sorry, Mom, no space for you anymore. I need to prioritize my family. Hope you understand. Derek." I stood there, one hand on the doorknob, the other shaking. The door was locked, deadbolted. I pounded, called his name, but I knew he was home. His car was in the driveway. No answer. Not even a porch light flicker. My heart wasn't broken. It was evacuated. I sat down on the steps, right on top of a damp cardigan I'd just bought at Belk. I must have sat there for 20 minutes, trying to convince myself I was misunderstanding the situation. But I wasn't. Derek had thrown me out. And all because his girlfriend, Tasha, moved in 6 months earlier with her toddler and started redecorating like I was the clutter. She's a nurse, and I respected that. But from day one, she had this way of smiling through her teeth like she was enduring me. I chalked it up to adjustment. Now I knew the truth. She didn't want me there. And Derek, he chose her. Before I continue, let me just say, if you're still listening, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, because this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about resurgence. And it's just getting started. Now, I didn't cry right then. I know it might sound cold, but I was raised with steel in my spine. What I did do, though, was get in my car, drive 5 blocks down, and pull into a plain brick building with ivy crawling up one side like an old scar. Unit B7. My hidden apartment. Let me explain. Years ago, when I was still working full-time and trying to keep my taxes clean, I bought a tiny one-bedroom above a vacant dentist office. I used it as a workspace, somewhere quiet to review legal docs or decompress. Nobody knew about it, except Sandra and my old boss, Pete. So while Derek was setting my things on the porch like a garage sale gone wrong, I still had a roof over my head. And more importantly, I still had legal options. Because remember what I said? I didn't sell the house to Derek. I transferred it. And in South Carolina, when you transfer property to a relative without proper legal safeguards, like a life estate clause, you leave a crack in the window. And lucky for me, that crack was wide enough to fit a whole lawsuit through. I dusted off my old files, called a contact I hadn't spoken to in years, Maggie Chavez, a brilliant real estate attorney who owed me a favor, and got to work. Quietly. Meanwhile, Derek posted pictures of his new family setup on Facebook. Tasha's son in his old room, my room painted over in gray tones and nursery wallpaper. They even put my antique cabinet up for sale on Facebook Marketplace. I bought it back under a fake name. Let me tell you something. There's a special kind of rage that lives in your stomach when someone doesn't just discard you, they replace you. But I didn't scream. I didn't show up banging on doors. I stayed quiet, gathering my paperwork and freezing the title transfer until it could be reviewed. And then I waited for the next thing I knew would come. The family meeting. My sister, my daughter, Melanie, called it. Said we all needed to talk about boundaries. When I walked into my niece's sunroom that Sunday afternoon, it went dead silent. Derek looked like he'd seen a ghost. Tasha had her arm looped through his like she was bracing him from a hurricane. And I was not alone. I had Maggie with me. Briefcase, heels, paperwork. Before we begin, I said, placing my hand on the back of a dining chair, I just want to be clear, anything we say here today may be referenced in court. The color drained from Derek's face so fast I thought he'd pass out right there between the potluck table and the ficus plant. But I wasn't done. Not even close. When I tell you the room went still, I mean funeral still. The only sound was the ceiling fan humming like it didn't know it was witnessing a family fracture. Derek glanced at Tasha. She shifted in her chair, suddenly real interested in the potato salad. My daughter Melanie blinked at me like I'd just stepped out of a Lifetime movie. Maggie, bless her, opened her briefcase with the kind of slow, deliberate movement you see in courtrooms. Like every inch of metal clicking open is a warning shot. I pulled out the folded deed transfer, the same one I signed over to Derek with that stupid grin on my face 2 years ago. I remember thinking at the time, he's finally grown enough to handle responsibility. I'm proud of him. Turns out, I'd handed a loaded weapon to a child with no brakes. I froze the title, I said, laying the paperwork down. Due to questionable circumstances surrounding the transfer, you locked me out of my own home, Derek. That's not just heartless, it's legally actionable. Melanie cleared her throat. Mom, maybe we should have discussed things before bringing a lawyer. This was supposed to be a family meeting. I smiled at her, gently. Sweetheart, I was trying to have a family. He was trying to have a house. Derek finally spoke. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Maggie leaned forward. Are we? You forcibly removed a person with established residence. There was no eviction notice, no 30-day warning, no mediation. That's illegal in this state. Derek rubbed his face, looking like he'd swallowed a hot coal. I didn't evict her. I just asked her to find somewhere else. It was time. Tasha's pregnant again, and the house is tight. And there it was. The reason I got booted out like last season's throw pillows. Another baby on the way. Tasha finally chimed in, quiet but firm. We need space, Ms. Duval. You said yourself you wanted to move into a condo. I said I was considering it. That doesn't mean you get to throw me out like expired milk. I could hear the tightness in my voice, but I wasn't about to mask it. Besides, I said, turning back to Derek, you know damn well I wasn't staying there out of convenience. I was staying there because I trusted you, because I thought you were family, not a landlord. There was a long pause. No one would meet my eyes. I gave you that house, I continued, voice shaking now. That wasn't an inheritance. That was a gift. You didn't even wait until I was cold in the ground to act like I didn't belong anymore. He had the nerve to look hurt. I didn't know you'd take it like this, he muttered. You always make everything emotional. And just like that, I felt the last thread snap. You're damn right I do. I raised you, Derek. I fed you when I was skipping meals myself. I took buses to 2 jobs so you could go to soccer practice. And when your father died, I let you sleep in my bed for 6 months so you didn't cry alone at night. If that's not worth a little emotion, I don't know what is. The silence that followed was heavy. Tasha stared at her hands. Melanie looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. I gathered my things and stood. This conversation is over. Next time we talk, it'll be through your attorney. And I left. Back in my apartment that night, I didn't feel powerful. I felt like someone had ripped my skin off and handed it back to me in pieces. I curled up on the futon, the same one I used to nap on between document reviews, and let myself cry. Not out of regret, out of grief. Not for the house, but for the son I thought I had. Funny thing is, grief clears your mind. After a while, it makes you sharper. You start seeing things for what they are. And when I dried my tears and poured a cup of chamomile tea, I made a decision. I wasn't going to fight him for the house. I was going to show him what it cost to push me out. A week later, Maggie helped me file a lease pendants, basically a legal notice that freezes any sale or mortgage activity tied to the property. Derek had no clue yet. He was busy posting ultrasound photos online like he'd reinvented fatherhood. Then I called my old friend Pete, the senior partner at the law firm where I'd worked for over 20 years. Still need someone to review your probate backlog? I asked. He laughed. Thought you'd never ask. Turns out being underestimated is one hell of an advantage. While Derek was repainting my kitchen cabinets and swapping out my doilies for cheap IKEA decor, I was elbow-deep in courthouse records, digging through property history, trust loopholes, and every potential legal misstep he made. And one night, around 11 p.m., with a tuna sandwich in one hand and a case file in the other, I found something. A discrepancy. The deed transfer had been filed without the proper notary sequence. It was technically notarized, yes, but the signature order was reversed, which, under South Carolina real estate law, can void the filing. And the notary was Tasha's cousin, a conflict of interest. Not illegal, but enough to raise eyebrows. It gave me leverage. Not to take the house back, but to remind him whose shoulders he'd climbed. 2 days later, I dropped off a manila envelope on Derek's porch. This time, he wasn't home. Tasha opened the door. She saw me, and I swear her stomach sank like she'd been caught mid-theft. "No lawyers this time?" she said. "Just papers," I replied. Inside the envelope, a full legal summary, courtesy of Maggie, outlining the deed error, the lease pendants notice, and a formal mediation request. Also inside, a handwritten note. "You thought you knew who I was. You saw a mother past her prime, a woman with no teeth left to bite. You forgot I was the one who taught you how to stand. And I still remember how to make people fall." He called me that night.
His voice cracked before he even got through hello. "Why were you doing this, Mom?" I almost didn't answer. But I did. "Because you didn't just take the house. You took my dignity. And I want it back." Here's where things get interesting. 2 days after the envelope drop, Melanie called me in a panic. "Mom, you need to see what Derek posted." I checked Facebook, and sure enough, there it was. A long-winded post dripping in performative guilt. "Life has a way of humbling you. I've made some mistakes recently, hurt someone I love. I let stress cloud my judgment. But I'm learning, growing." The comments were full of sympathy, people telling him what a good man he was for being vulnerable. I almost gagged. Then I got a text from Tasha. Just 5 words. "This wasn't part of the plan." And that was the moment I realized it wasn't Derek pulling the strings. It was her.
When I got that text from Tasha, "This wasn't part of the plan," I didn't respond. I just stared at it, the words pulsing on the screen like they were waiting to explode. So, there was a plan, and for once, Derek wasn't the puppet master. I sat back in my little apartment, the old radiator humming in the corner, and I saw everything clearly. The sudden push to give him the house, the pressure to move out, the fake sweetness from Tasha whenever I offered to help with her son. All of it. She hadn't just wanted space, she wanted to secure her future. She saw me as deadweight, a speed bump on her way to stability. But here's the thing about Southern women raised on grit and gospel. We don't break easy. We wait. And when the moment's right, we take back everything we lost. It didn't take long after that for things to unravel. The mediation meeting was scheduled on a Tuesday afternoon. Derek showed up first, tie crooked, hands wringing like he just crawled out of a confession booth. Tasha was 15 minutes late, walking in like she was headed to a brunch she didn't want to be at. Maggie and I sat calmly on our side of the conference table. We didn't say much at first, just let the silence eat at them. Finally, Maggie slid the updated documents across the table. "This is a revised property agreement. It voids the original deed transfer on grounds of improper notarization and coerced agreement. Miss Duval is reclaiming ownership." Tasha's mouth fell open. Derek just blinked. "You're taking it back?" he asked, voice cracking. "After all I've done for that house?" I couldn't help it. I laughed. "All you've done? You mean changing my curtains, painting over my walls, renting out my room to your girlfriend's cousin for extra cash? Yeah, I saw the Airbnb listing." Tasha's neck snapped toward him. "You did what?" "Oh, don't act surprised," I said, leaning in. "You weren't just planning to kick me out. You were planning to flip the place, weren't you? Collect a few months of rent, maybe sell it off before the baby came, start fresh in a bigger place on my back." Derek's face turned beet red. Tasha looked ready to storm out, but she stayed, because she knew what I knew. She had more to lose. That's when I laid down the final card. "I'm not pressing charges, not for the illegal eviction, not for the misfiled paperwork. But there's a condition." They both stared at me like they were bracing for a guillotine. "You pack your things and get out of my house by Friday, quietly. No mess, no more Facebook sob stories. You walk away with what's yours, and I'll let you keep your reputation." "And if we don't?" Tasha asked. Maggie slid another sheet across the table. "Then we file suit," she said, deadpan. "Publicly. And I have a feeling local realtors and your hospital board might be interested in the details." Tasha swallowed. Hard. Friday came and they left. No goodbye, no tears. Just a moving truck and 2 people who thought they could play the long game with someone who invented it. Walking back into that house for the first time alone was surreal.
It smelled like lavender cleaner and baby powder. Tasha must have done a last-minute wipe down to look innocent, but it didn't erase what had been taken. Still, I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was settled. I walked through each room like I was being reintroduced to myself. The living room where I used to read Derek the Velveteen Rabbit, the kitchen where I burned my first pecan pie but served it anyway, the hallway mirror where I used to adjust my hair before job interviews. Every inch of that house held my fingerprint, my blood, sweat, and hope. I unpacked slowly over the next week, cleaned, rearranged, lit my old vanilla bean candles, hung up the cross-stitch Melanie made for me in 8th grade. By the second weekend, it felt like home again. My home. A month later, I had coffee with Melanie. We sat outside a little cafe near the park. It was sunny, but I could tell by the way she kept looking at her phone she had something to say. "Mom," she finally said, "I just want you to know, I didn't know what Derek was planning. I would have said something." I believed her, mostly. But I also know how easy it is to stay silent when things get messy. "I know, honey, but silence is a choice." She nodded slowly. "You okay now?" I smiled. I'm more than okay. I remembered who I am. Life's quiet now. I volunteer twice a week at the county library, help with resumes, paperwork, anything that makes people feel like they have a chance. I even started teaching a small workshop for women over 50 navigating retirement and inheritance. You'd be surprised how many stories start like mine. Derek hasn't reached out since the mediation. I hear through the grapevine that he and Tasha moved to Charlotte. She's working nights. He's trying to get into real estate. I wish them well. I really do. Not because I've forgotten, but because I'm free. Free from trying to earn the love I already gave. Free from shrinking myself to fit in someone else's future. I live in my home, on my terms, surrounded by peace and the quiet power of knowing I didn't burn a bridge. I rebuilt it behind me, stronger than ever. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's this. Being needed and being valued are not the same thing. Don't wait until someone throws you out to remember what you built. Protect your name, your history, and your boundaries. You matter, and no one gets to rewrite your story just because they think they're the next chapter. Sometimes the best revenge is reclaiming what should have never been taken from you, with grace, with grit, and without losing who you are. If you've ever been underestimated, replaced, or pushed out of your own story, I'd love to hear how you took your power back. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your own tale of justice in the comments, because every reckoning starts with one voice that refuses to stay silent.